Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is going to be another video of games that have entered my collection. I did one of these videos, I want to say June or July of 2020, covering the first half of 2020, and this is going to be covering the second half of 2020, the games that I played, liked, and have decided to add them to my collection. Now, this list is going to be 27 different games that I played, enjoyed, and are adding, and the criteria here, non-completely scientific, I'm basically just looking at my stats app, going through what I played, and taking a look at it and seeing, was it one that I've mentally added to my collection, that it's sticking around for some degree of time, which means there are going to be many games that I missed because I played it once and I'm still not sure, or maybe I played it a few times but I still just don't have the confidence of sticking around. Ultimately, these are the games that I really enjoyed. They might leave, it happens. My last video, the one I did last time covering the first half of 2020, had 22 games on that list, 22 games that entered my collection, of which 2 have left. So over the 6 months since then, 2 of them have left, and those are going to be Coffee Roaster and Mandala from the last video. And this batch from these 27 that I'm adding, I'm very curious how many of these will survive until the next one of these videos I do, whether in 3 months, 6 months, I don't know exactly how often I'll do these. More than every 6 months, or less frequently than every 6 months, means it's going to get way too long, and even quarterly. I think I'm going to aim for quarterly, but that we'll see, and ultimately let's just jump straight into it. You can already see some of these on the table. They're going to be very quick thoughts on each of the games. This is not going to be an in-depth review of anything, and to any comments I get, which I generally get a few here and there, talking about, we want shots of the games, of B-roll, of coverage. Well, if you're new to the channel, welcome. I am Alex from Board Game Co., and I do not add B-roll or editing to my videos, at least not yet. I'm still balancing, well, 3 jobs if you count YouTube, and trying to make everything work in the time I have. So B-roll, while an eventual goal for this channel, while making things look prettier is going to be an eventual goal, it's not something that's going to happen, at least as of right now, while I'm still struggling to do everything together. So, jumping up to that, we're going to have Cthulhu Wars with, I think, 3 plays under my belt so far. This is one that I do plan on doing a review for once I feel a little more confident. Where I am with it right now is, if I had to pick one of the games from this list that wouldn't necessarily make it, this might be one of them. And that's because while I do like it, I really do, in terms of the space it's fighting in terms of area control, games with powers and abilities and asymmetry and all that, I just like other games more, at least 3 plays in. I want to give it more plays. I have some of the expansions, I'm going to be adding them too, but it's going to be an area control game with the Elder Gods, with asymmetrical races and powers as you unlock these different spell tomes that will give you more asymmetry in the game, more stuff you can do, more differences as you try to go around the board collecting power and trying to ultimately win the game. I generally like the puzzle it's providing, while still feeling it's a little bit too, I don't know, a little bit too something. I mean, we'll save a review for that, but I've played it 3 times and I still plan on playing it more times, and I do plan on reviewing it, so I feel it has to make this list, at least as of now. From there, we're going to go to the second one. If I was picking one other that is almost certainly not going to be on the list, it's technically a cheat, that's going to be Clank Legacy. Clank Legacy Acquisitions Incorporated is a legacy game that we are currently 4 plays in, and we'll get all the way through the campaign, we will finish it, but I do not imagine it will be staying in my collection past that. It is possible I will come back to this one down the road. I have played Pandemic Legacy 1 and 2, I played them twice each, so it's always possible that I'll come back to this one, because I didn't think I would play those twice each, but I did. That being said, I don't think I'll play Clank Legacy again. I enjoy it, but overall the Clank system, for context here, Clank is a deck building game, and this is the legacy version of that game, and I don't have any of the Clank games in my collection. I've played Clank in Space, I thought it was good, I didn't love it. Generally, I like deck building games a lot. I tend to like fixed markets like you'll find in Dominion, in Ignite, which is not yet available, in Quest for El Dorado. I tend to like fixed markets and deck building more than I like random card rows. There are deck builders in my collection that have random card rows, so it's not a complete exclusionary statement, but overall, Clank never really won me over. Clank Legacy, I do like so far. I'm liking the unlocking, I'm liking the puzzling. I may or may not do a review on it. Legacy games are always a little trickier to review without spoilers, which means you're covering half a picture. Overall, I like it enough that I am certain we will finish it. I could be wrong, of course. I'm certain we will finish it, and then from there, it will leave my collection technically, but I'm counting it because it's a legacy game. I don't know how to do these lists. I'm just making it up as I go along. From there, we're going to have Quirky Circuits. Quirky Circuits is going to be a action programming game that I have a bunch of plays under my belt. I want to do a review on this one as well. This one I kind of want to play it with different player counts or people before I do a review on it. In general, my reviews are always a little trickier because when I'm trying to balance a publisher sending me a copy or a Kickstarter or some sort of preview, that I usually can't get as many plays under my belt because I have to get things done and knocked out. So I'll still get a bunch of plays in. I'll still try to get as many plays as I can, but it's usually more concentrated with the same group of people, versus when I'm under no pressure, no timeline whatsoever, I like to experience a game more, to get more depth, especially a game that's not new, so there's no rush to be first to get a review out, because I'm definitely not first anyway. So Quirky Circuits, along with, Cthulhu Wars, are going to fit into that category, as may others on this list. But this is going to be a action programming game where you are playing cooperatively with other players to play cards down to a card row, to move your little robot or whatever character you're using that round around the board, and to accomplish certain objectives. It's kind of like The Mind meets Robo Rally, and I really like the mashup that it's giving you there. From there, we're going to have Whistle Mountain. Whistle Mountain is one that I, again, will almost certainly be doing a review on, as well as, we'll see some other stuff. Whistle Mountain is going to be a Bezier Games this is designed by Luke Laurie, and it is a bit of a mess, but it's a mess that works. So, Whistle Mountains is going to be a game that has polyomino-like pieces, and ultimately it's like a worker placement where you're going to place your little blimps on the board to collect resources or trigger buildings, which you then use those to continuously augment your engine by getting more buildings, getting more power cogs, different things you can do to level up. The game overall really feels like a bit of a mess in terms of what it's trying to do. This is a critique is a loose word, that I kind of had about Endless Winter. When I played Endless Winter, a game that I love and I'm looking forward to getting, I still felt the whole system felt messy while still really loving the actual system play. And Whistle Mountain is going to be very much the same for me. It's a game that I love the system while still feeling like it's a bit messy in the actual design, feeling like everything's just kind of happening on the board space. I do like it, and I will be doing a review on it, and it is one that I believe is staying in my collection and will likely be here till the next list, but we shall see. From there, we're going to have Mutants. Mutants is a game that, again, you can expect a review on. A whole bunch of these you can expect reviews on. Mutants is a game that this is from Lucky Duck Games, and I actually just talked about this on the Quackalo podcast, the Weekly Quack. You can check that out. Maybe I'll throw a link down below if I remember. And Mutants is going to be one that completely passed me by. This is a game that I saw Michael Kelly from One Stop Co-op Shop in a Facebook group talking about how he liked it and he enjoyed it, and I was like, well, I mean, I like Lucky Duck Games in general. Something about this game completely passed me by. I don't know why, but because of his comments about the game, I picked it up, we played it with my wife, and I will be reviewing this with my wife. I will say no more because I'd rather save that for the actual review, but I will say I like it. I'm looking forward to, I have all the expansions and everything, and I'm looking forward to getting this to the table more. And that is going to be batch 1, because I have to figure out how to fit 27 games on the table while pushing them out of camera view in a way that does not result in a stack of games falling on the floor, mid-camera, whatever. From there, we're going to have the next stack. See how I cleverly hid that under a pile of blankets? The degrees to which I go for these videos. So, from here we're going to have, let's take these off and work our way up. We're going to have Trogdor. Trogdor the Burninator is a review I did with Ricky. This is a cooperative game that is, well, taking from Trogdor as a theme, and I really, really like it. It is surprisingly whimsical, which is a word I like to use, and I'm dealing with it. I'm trying to see people. We'll figure out how to get other words into my system, but for right now, Trogdor is a light little cooperative experience in which you are marching Trogdor around the board, burninating the villages, burning the countryside, burninating the peasants, burninating the whoever you can, while the knights and archers try to get on your way and slowly deplete your health before you can ultimately burninate everything. Burninating everything is the goal. I really enjoy Trogdor. Again, full review with my daughter. I expect this one to be here for quite some time. Lost Ruins of Arnak. Wow. So this one, I love this game. I am really enjoying Lost Ruins of Arnak. I have enjoyed Endless Winter, I've enjoyed Dune Imperium, I've enjoyed Lost Ruins of Arnak. I've done a comparison video on all 3 of these games. This is going to be a deck building worker placement game, a game which you utilize the cards as you deck build out your engine to place your workers in different spots using those cards, and then using those cards for other abilities as well. And it's the compasses and the chaining and the resource conversion you have in this game, and the navigating up different tracks or exploring different locations. All the things in this game coalesce very nicely. The artifacts are a ton of fun. I've really been enjoying Lost Ruins of Arnak. For me, the order is still Endless Winter, then Arnak, then Dune Imperium, but I really do love all 3 of these games, and Arnak it's beautiful. I want an expansion. I want an expansion now, primarily because I want more cards, more mechanics, and I want to do more stuff. The gameplay is great, plays it well at very well player counts. The art is absolutely gorgeous. The feeling of doing stuff is fun. Playing it at lower player counts in particular is very short. My wife and I knock out games of this in 45 minutes, which makes me think that I want to pull it out and get it to the table. We'll do that sooner or later. From there, we're going to have Marvel United. Marvel United is a game that, if I were looking at this core set alone, I actually just talked about this in my top 10 worst games that I still own, and it's still showing up here because Marvel United is a game that I do enjoy. I've played the core set. I like the core set. I played with my wife, my kids. It's fun. But for me, the reason I believe it will be sticking around in 6 months, the reason I'm willing to call this a game that is in my collection, and not a game that is on the fringe of my collection just waiting to be cut, is because of the expansions. I'm looking forward to getting all the expansions from Command when my Wave 2 or whatever it is ships, and then being able to play the game, being able to experience all of it, because the amount of miniatures, the amount of extras, the amount of components, the mechanical changes that each expansion brings to the table. I have played with the Loki expansion on TTS. Lots of fun to add a hidden trader element to the Marvel game. It kind of combines a lightweight cooperative game with a hidden trader element, with fun miniatures, with some powers and abilities. Still, to me, the weakest point of Marvel United is going to be the unique feeling of the characters. They just don't feel that unique, which is a shame for a game that gives you like 80 plus heroes. And I know they are technically different, but technically different and feeling different are very different conversations. Next up, we have Nova Luna, a game that I reviewed with my wife. This is going to be a game that is from Uwe Rosenberg and has one of those elements that has similar to Patchwork, where you are the person who is in the last space on the track goes next. So you can have someone who takes 2-3 turns in a row, depending on how far back they were and what other turns other players did. What you're doing in this game is you're taking these little puzzly pieces in order to let them trigger off each other. So each puzzle both has shapes on it, both has colors on it, as well as has a pattern that needs to be met by other puzzle pieces around it. And so you have to try to figure out, well, if I put this next to this, and then this next to this, and then put that here, well, now I suddenly just got 3 goals, putting a whole bunch of pieces on the board, which enable, if you can figure out that aspect of how to min-max your way in terms of placement and combining, that's really, really the game. And I like that kind of thing. It's a puzzle, and it's a pretty puzzle, and it's a quick playing puzzle that plays well at very well player counts. Next up, we have Project L. I did a review on this one as well. Many of these have gotten reviews, which is nice, I guess. Project L is going to be one that, I don't know, I'm showing you the back of the box, because nothing you can see really there. This is another Polyomino game. This is going to be by Board Cubator. They just had a Kickstarter for the expansion for this one, Project L Finesse, I believe it was. And this is one that is really, really fun. It has gone down a few degrees since I reviewed it, just in terms of the game itself, while I really like it, is a little samey, and I think I talked about that in the video. I hope I did, because maybe I didn't, I don't know. But the game can be a little samey. It helps if you have the Ghost expansion and the Ambassadors expansion, but I am looking forward to getting the Finesse expansion because I want to see what it adds to the game, meaning I enjoy it. I like pulling it out, but I find that I pull it out less with the same group, and more I pull it out with new players, new people who are entering the table. I pull it out with them to say, hey, look, here's a great, light, little Polyomino game we can experience. Because like I said, the game plays samey, still like it, still happy to pull it out, but games that continuously give you the same exact sequence every single time are games that will hit the table less as time goes on. I still tend to keep them. If I enjoy the gameplay, I tend to keep them. The nice part about having 200 plus games is that I can play this once or twice a year and I don't even need to check the rules because it's an easy game, so I expect it to still be around next batch of videos. But overall, I will say my biggest critique about it is that I really, really, really like how easy it is, how accessible it is, how fun it is, while also feeling that the game is the same experience every single time, or mostly the same experience. Next up, we have Spirits of the Wild. Spirits of the Wild is one that you can expect to probably see a review on at some point. This is a 2-player game that was actually recommended to me by someone in the comments. I did a review of Herbaceous, and when I reviewed Herbaceous, someone said, you should get Spirits of the Wild. It has the same basic concept, but good for 2 players. I got Spirits of the Wild. I still own Herbaceous, but Spirits of the Wild is one that I play far, 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 far more than Herbaceous. Herbaceous is better at higher player counts. I'll happily pull it out when I want a 3 or 4 player experience. For me, Spirits of the Wild is the better 2-player experience. It is artwork and a theme that is more appealing to myself, and overall just it's more fun to pull those tokens out as opposed to playing with cards or whatnot. But both games have an aspect of set collection, an aspect of trying to figure out, well, I need this and I'm going to combine it to that set. The longer I wait, the more options I have, but also that means you might take it first. A little bit cutthroat, a little bit getting in each other's ways, and a little bit of figuring out the best way to, well, you know, mess with each other when you play that 2-player experience. And that's going to be Spirits of the Wild. Next up, we have Under Falling Skies. This is a highlight for me. This is an absolute highlight. I've been loving Under Falling Skies. It is a great solo game, technically a cooperative experience, but not one that I actually play cooperatively. And this is going to be one where you're basically fighting against an alien invasion along this track over here. You're going to be having the mothership slowly descending towards your base, at which point you have to roll dice and place them on various locations in order to figure out which benefits you're going to take to research the aliens, which is the big way. That's the way you ultimately win, or perhaps to shoot down aliens, or to generate more energy, or to move your little digger machine, whatever it's called, I can't remember, further down into the dungeon, into the city, the underbellies of the city, so you can unlock new caverns, new research departments, new whatever. And the way you place those dice and the way you manage that puzzle is a fun experience every single time. Under Falling Skies was a surprise hit for me in 2020. I basically reached out to CGE for Lost Ruins of Arnak to get a review copy of Lost Ruins of Arnak, and they said, hey, we'll send that to you, and do you want to review Under Falling Skies? And I was like, It looks good, so sure, send it away. I'll give it a shot. And Under Falling Skies is one that I got to the table more than Lost Winds of Arnak. Both of them were absolutely amazing. Loving both of them. Happy to have both in my collection. Under Falling Skies, and I imagine, so here's what's tricky, because one of the games that I mentioned left my collection last time is going to be Coffee Roaster. Coffee Roaster is a game that I mentioned left my collection last time, and Coffee Roaster, I really enjoyed the solo experience. My problem with Coffee Roaster is I felt it played out the same every single time. I felt that it was a really good game, but one that I was playing it solo, and it just the same game after a certain number of plays. Under Falling Skies, by giving the game a campaign mode, which they did, they keep mixing things up and elongating the experience. I feel that if Coffee Roaster came out with some sort of campaign mode expansion where you slowly unlock components and have to figure out how to incorporate it into the puzzle, I think that one would still be in my collection if it had more variability to the way it played out. Versus Under Falling Skies, I've only played through the first campaign so far, but every time I pull it out, I'm like, oh, let me play one round, let me go back to the campaign. I haven't felt the need to dive into campaign number 2, so I think it will have more longevity just because of that alone. It gives me more ways, more puzzles, more different ways to mix up the experience that I am trying to figure out. And lastly, from this pile, is going to be Via Magica. Via Magica is a game that I reviewed with Ricky. This is effectively a re-implementation of Augustus. This is basically Bingo. That's all it is. It's Bingo, the board game. But it does so pretty well. I was fairly skeptical about this one. I did not think I would like it. I got it because I was like, well, I mean, the theme's good. My daughter will like it. I know it's the art pulled her in off the bat. But I really do enjoy it. It's not one I would play with adults. So it's not one I would play with gamer adults. It's one I'd entertain with gateway gamers. The sequencing is very familiar. The sequencing is fun. The cards you are trying to get, because sure, the actual way you build the portals is Bingo, but the actual card choices, the portal choices you are making, and the sequence in which you try to do them, there is enough gamification to the experience that there actually is meaningful choice. It's not one I would pull out with a gateway crowd, but it's one I would pull out with my daughter, my kids, and or gateway gamers. And that is going to be Via Magica, which means I now need to figure out how to get pile number 3 onto the table, because I only thought through pile number 1. So let's delicately move these guys back to the background, where they can sit in the background all nice and not tilting over at all over there. And then we move to pile number 3. Pile number 3. This is the heavy pile. So the question is, you don't want to like tilt over everything as you're doing these, because again, having to either edit or deal with a pile of dropped games mid-camera would be less fun for me. More fun for you, by the way. It would be immensely fun for you. Less fun for me. So, starting off, we're going to start with, let's start with this one. Machina Arcana. Machina Arcana is one I've talked a lot about. This is one I played for the first time in second half of 2020. This is one that I had a Kickstarter for. They had a whole new 3rd edition, which is really mostly an expansion, and then a bunch of updates to various text, cards, stuff like that. Some aspects to the board as well, but mostly minor graphical updates or whatnot combined with an expansion. And Machina Arcana to me is a lot of fun. It is a dungeon crawling experience that plays well solo, plays well 2 players, is simple, streamlined, and gives you upgraded gear and other things to experience, to have, or whatnot. I've really been enjoying Machina Arcana. I have continuously been enjoying Machina Arcana. It is one that I'm looking forward. I don't know if I'm looking forward to the Kickstarter. Like, I have new stuff coming, but I don't feel the need for it. I'll get it to the table eventually, but this does just a good job on its own. It's one that I can pull out and jump through, spend 2 hours having a little dungeon crawl experience, enjoying the puzzle that's being presented, enjoying the running through the dungeon, enjoying the unlocking more stuff, exploding barrels, activating traps. It is one that I really enjoy, but it's very linear, I guess, in a way, sort of. Yeah, it's pretty linear. You go through a progression. There's different missions or scenarios you can go through. Ultimately, I like Machina Arcana. Solid dungeon crawler. Next up is Quodd Heroes. Now, Quodd Heroes technically may not be here in 6 months. It may not be because, well, they are having another Kickstarter where they're going to have a upgrade kit and new stuff and whatnot, and depending on what they do or don't have, I don't yet know what I am or am not getting, but Quodd Heroes, it is always possible it will leave my collection before then. That said, a big part of my overall decision of where Quodd Heroes lies in my collection will be the type of storage solutions they offer during the Kickstarter, because my biggest problem with Quodd Heroes, before we even talk about what kind of game it is going to be the fact that it is harder to get to the table. It's just a little fiddly, a little messy in terms of the game being presented. I would love some sort of a, broken token insert to pull everything out nicely, cleanly, and quickly jump into the game. That would do it for me in a heartbeat. I enjoy Quodd Heroes solo. I enjoy it with other players. It is one where you are rolling your quads, tumbling your quads across the board in order to accomplish different objectives, and it's one that you have to kind of, figure out how to navigate stuff, and figure out how to win again, either against the clock or against another player. And all the upgraded gear and different options they present you just makes it a different puzzle every single time. It is Robo Rally on who knows what. It's a messed up game that is immensely fun, that the biggest problem with it is just how easy it is to get to the table. I really hope there's some sort of ideal storage solution. If not, I think I'm still gonna keep it. Like, it is hard to get to the table. It really is. I want to play it more, but that being said, I do like Quodd Heroes, so it's going to stay for now. Next up, we're going to have Etherfields. Now, there's a few of these boxes here which are smaller because I am using the Creatures of Etherfields box to represent Etherfields because, well, if I can get smaller boxes on this table full of 27 games, I will do so. So, Creatures of Etherfields. This is going to be Etherfields, obviously, from Awakened Realms. It is currently set up under this table. It is so frustrating because I played through a ton of Dreams in order to do a review, in order to do a compare and contrast between Etherfields and Isis Vanguard. So I played through a lot of content. I have like 10 plus hours in this. I don't remember exactly how much. Probably my app somewhere. I have a lot of content done in terms of the Dream. And it's still set up under this table over here. But I just haven't been able to get to the table because playing other games, both games I love with other people, as well as playing different games for the sake of reviewing for the channel, covering solo experiences wherever I can, whenever relevant or whatnot. This is one that I really do want to finish off this game. I think Etherfields is going to fall into the category for me of a game that I go through once, and then get rid of it. That's what it's going to be. It's not one that I'm going to keep in my collection. It's not one I'm going to go through again. It's technically replayable, although you'll know a lot of stuff, but for me, I just want to go through the entire sequence once, get rid of it. My only real debate is whether I will be holding on to it enough to get my Wave 2 stuff and see how it plays out, because I enjoy it. I don't know if I enjoy it to hold on through the wait and to see how it goes. I may end up selling my pledge and then redirecting Wave 2 to whoever, but I don't know. I have to finish the first set of Dreams and everything else. I like the experience, I like the story, but for me it's an experiential thing. It's like watching a movie, a TV show, knocking it off your list and moving on to the next one, and that's going to be Etherfield. So probably still be in 6 months, but if it isn't, it's because I completed stuff. Likely. From there, we're going to have Kingdom Rush. And again, this is going to be a smaller box because I don't want to deal with the longer boxes. So we are doing the larger boxes. This is going to be Kingdom Rush, the 3D Towers expansion, which is a great game. I recommend the Towers expansion. So ultimately, Kingdom Rush is a great game. This video is probably going up, I can't remember. This video is going up after the Kickstarter launch. Yeah, so Kingdom Rush Elemental Uprising is currently on Kickstarter, I imagine, based on when I think this video is going up. And this game is going to be, Kingdom Rush as a game is a game system. It's a polyomino tower defense game that I have been really enjoying it. I put out a review on this one. I've covered it off the channel. I enjoy it solo. I enjoy it cooperatively. I don't like it as much with 3. I'm still willing to play with 3. Based on playing it with 3, I think I am unwilling to play it with 4, or very reluctantly willing to play it with 4. I like the experience a lot. I like the sequencing of trying to figure out the puzzle of the polyominoes approaching you. It has a very good start to the game, and that's not true. It has a very scripted start to the game, because the way you need to win in this game is you need to upgrade your powers, you need to upgrade your towers in the game. And so you want to spend the first part of the game just doing the bare minimum to survive, and then the mid game is where you start to have fun, executing all your powers and whatnot, all the towers, placing them down, and then the end game tends to be a little bit more like, okay, well, I either got this or I don't, let's just play it out. But again, that's tens. There are certainly exceptions, like my very last game of Elemental Uprising that I played with Quackalope, in which we kind of thought we had it, and then we lost badly at the end. So things happen in this game. As far as Kingdom Rush versus Elemental Uprising, I don't know if I did a full compare contrast. I talked about it in my review of Elemental Uprising. I don't remember exactly what I did or didn't say. Overall, for myself, I think I prefer Kingdom Rush as a experience that I would recommend for your first-time player. They're both standalone games, but I very much like Elemental Uprising. I'm getting both for myself because they add new towers, new characters, new whatever. There are elements, I would say overall for myself, I like Elemental Uprising more. But I think Kingdom Rush it's hard to say, because the difficulty level is the problem, because they are balancing Elemental Uprising to be a little bit more difficulty accessible. I know a lot of people complain about the difficulty in this game. Overall, I really like Kingdom Rush. I've gotten a ton of plays of it under my belt. It's probably one of my most played from the things on the table. Maybe Under Falling Skies I have more plays, I don't know. But this is definitely going to be one of the most played games from all the games I've talked about so far, although we have some big ones coming up. Next up, we're going to have Obsession. These are just much small boxes. Again, this is going to be expansion, so that I don't have to deal with the big box. Obsession is going to be one that I imagine will be here for quite some time, because I enjoy it. I like it, but I don't love it. I like it a decent amount. My wife likes it more than I do, and it's a game that, in general, games that both I like and my wife like, if we have a certain threshold of how much we like it, they're going to stick around because they will be played. Games that I like more than she does get played a little bit less often because I can play them with my other people in my game group or whatnot. Games that she likes more than I do, those are the games that hit the table a lot, assuming I also like them. We don't keep games that only one of us likes and the other one doesn't, because we're not trying to force each other to playing games that aren't fun when we could play games that we both find fun. So, Obsession, deck building, worker placement, sort of. Not the same way Dune Imperium is, not the same way Arnak is. The deck building is really more hand management, kind of similar to Concordia, and the worker placement's kind of just on your own board, not on a shared space. So it kind of is deck building, worker placement, but it's really deck management, worker assigning. I don't know, it's more resource management, hand management than deck building, worker placement. But I really like it, highly recommend it. A very unique theme. It's one that people talk about and people eventually get, and then they talk about how much they love it. Generally, not always. Next up, we have Fleet the Dice Game. Fleet the Dice Game is a complete surprise hit for us. This is, well, surprise is a relative term. This is one that was recommended to me by Sarah Shaw by Board Games in a Minute, and it's one that we got to the table. I was skeptical, to be frank. I was very skeptical. I read the rules, and I was sitting there thinking, why would I play this over Gone Shun Clever? I like it. I like it a lot. It is much better than Fleet the board game. It is a lot of fun to chain those tracks together and figure out how you're going to optimize your shipping boats and your licenses and your this and your that. My biggest complaint against it would be the variability. How well does it handle itself over 15, 20 plays? We have like 4 plays under our belt, maybe even 3 plays, I don't know exactly. But there is an expansion in here already, a miniature expansion with a few extra stuff, but it will still add to the variability on the table. And it's one that I have no problem pulling this out once every 6 months and getting a play in. It's that kind of game. I mean, that's how I do most of these roll and writes. I have a bunch of them, and then they see play a little less frequently as time goes on. That's going to be Fleet the Dice Game. From there we have Cloaked Cats, which if I get rid of in the next 6 months, I guarantee you my daughter will probably murder me. She probably won't murder me. She's my daughter and I could take her. I'm pretty sure I could take her. Cloaked Cats is going to be a game by, we have a review that's one up for this one, and this is a Haba game that is about deduction. It's family weight social deduction. We really enjoy it. We've been playing this a lot. This is going to be very similar to Via Magica for me. It's one that I actually really like playing it. I probably would not play it at game night, almost certainly not, but I do enjoy playing it with both my kids, as well as happy to pull it out with gateway gamers. It's fun. It's you just get to put down a cat and then see if it matches one of your attributes, place down a tile to tell you. It's kind of like Mastermind. You have to figure out the combination of, well, if you have that cat there and that attribute there, well, either you're the white cat or you have 2 different attributes and it's just a coincidence. So you have to figure that out, make guesses, and score points accordingly. Solid fun, and one that will be around for a while, I imagine. Next up we have Cross Clues. This is one that may very well not be here, because Cross Clues to me is an inferior version of Codenames. I would much rather play Codenames over Cross Clues. I can't think of a reason why I'd pull out Cross Clues over Codenames, but we do. We do like it. We've played this one like a whole bunch. It's a lot of fun too. It's very easy to simply pull out, and it gives you a variability from the Codenames experience. You have this little grid of trying to figure out the perfect clue to match the intersection of 2 different words. So it's a little less brain burnery than Codenames, which is why I personally prefer Codenames. I love the feeling of Codenames where you can sit there and give a clue that is like this 6, and then somebody actually gets 5 of your 6 words. It's so rewarding. Versus Cross Clues, you're just trying to figure out one thing. It's what's the combination of vet and cold, and you're like polar bear, and you said polar bear, and then somebody says vet and cold, and they figure it out. It is rewarding. I would say it's a great introduction to Codenames, to the combination of what's going on in Codenames, that aspect of connecting different things in a clue. I really do enjoy it, and it's one that, again, I think it'll still be in 6 months because it's easy and it's light and it's easy to pull out, but it's also may not be because it's just on the light, I don't know, not as good as Codenames to myself. Next up, and I counted these as 1. For those keeping track of the 27 games, I did count these as 1, which is going to be Cockroach Poker and Cockroach Poker Royal. I don't know why I still have Cockroach Poker, probably because the box size is tiny, because at this point we primarily play Cockroach Poker Royal. This is going to be a little bluffing game where you sit there and you have a bunch of these animals, these little insects, and you're like, I have a cockroach. And then someone else says, I am going to look at it, and they look at the card, and then they say to the other player there, he's lying, it's a rat. Meaning you're passing these cards back and forth, each player providing and adding a statement to the game, and the combination of what different people said combined with which cards they have in front of them, because if you ever end up with 4 of a kind in front of you, that's when you lose the game. And so managing that den of lies and the den of what they are more likely or less likely to say depending on which cards they have and whether they are the kind of person to lie directly to your face is going to be the management of the game in this game. It's a lot of fun, really enjoy it. One of our most frequently played bluffing games at this point. It's taken over Skull and Coup as our most most commonly pulled up bluffing game when we're closing up the night and want a quick game or games to close up. It is regularly, by the way, it is 2:30 in the morning and I'm saying, nope, I'm done, and I get roped into one more game because I'm trying to be responsible and it's just not working. And with that, pile 4, back to the side, which brings us to the last pile, the last 4 games, and this is going to be this pile over here. Okay, so to begin with, we have For Glory, a game that I reviewed with my wife. For Glory is, I actually reviewed all 4 of these. Nice. Okay, great. I reviewed all 4 of these. For Glory is going to be a 2-player deck building experience. Do they have a solo mode? I don't think they have a solo mode. It says 2 players. They have no solo mode. It's 2 players and 2 players only. This is going to be one that was, again, a surprise hit to us. Not on our radar at all. It was a Kickstarter game. It's available to buy as well now. And it's one that gives you a tight 2-player deck building experience of gladiatorial combat. It is one that does. This is one of the exceptions, that it is deck building from a pool of cards that comes out progressively as opposed to a fixed pile of set cards. One of the reasons that this is an exception is going to be because of the fact that I really like, and actually now I'm thinking about Dune, Imperium, and Arnak also have card rows, so I just like all deck builders apparently. For Glory though, one of the reasons I like it though is they have 3 different card piles, each providing the different card types. So even though the assortment is varied, you actually do have consistent economy, consistent powers, and consistent gladiators showing up. You want to balance those as you go through a few rounds of basically destroying each other's gladiators and getting the most points. Lots of fun. My biggest complaint is it runs a little long, which not long compared to what they say. They say it's a 90-minute game, and it is a 90-minute game. Yep, they say it's a 60 to 90-minute game, and it is a 90-minute game for us. I would love to be able to get those plays down to 60 minutes, but overall, I'm pretty sure this will stick around for the same reason I said before. My wife likes it, I like it, we play this one a lot, and it's going to stick around for right now. Next up, we have Dune Imperium. Dune Imperium, which is my least favorite of those deck building worker placement games, and yet still one that I actually love. This is one that introduces conflict, so it's the most conflicty of those deck builder worker placements, with each of the rounds ending in a fight, so you have to manage that aspect of, okay, well I want to do this and I want to do this, but if I don't end up contributing units to the conflict across the game, ultimately I will lose. You have to be present in that conflict. You have to show up, not all the time, and in fact knowing when to back down and barely touch the conflict, versus after everyone wipes themselves out, being able to jump in. Lots of fun in that. My biggest complaint against Dune is going to be the stale, cyclical nature of the resources. You gotta get water to get sand, and you gotta use sand to get money, and then money to get troops, so that you're usually going round and around in a circle of what you need to get to do whatever. Ultimately it works. I really like it. I like going up those influence tracks. I like being able to deck build certain cards and use the combinations to be able to go on the sand deserts, taking double sand, and perhaps weed my deck a little bit more. This is like one of the deck builders where I don't actually weed my deck as much as I usually do in most other deck building games, but I mean, I should probably try the deck weeding strategy next time. Now I want to go full deck weeding the next time I play this. Dune Imperium's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it, and Tom Vassell is wrong. The Lost Ruins of Arnak is much better than Dune Imperium. From there, we have The Reckoners. The Reckoners, which is going to be another game. This is going to fall all over. The Reckoners, which is going to be a game that is a superhero experience, or more specifically, destroying superheroes experience. I really like this one. This is one that I did a review on. My biggest complaint is going to be similar to Project L, which is the more you play, the more you feel the game is basically exactly the same every single time. Fun, but the same. So you can vary the difficulty, which is nice, so you can increase the challenge as you get better. But the cards and the heroes, they don't feel like you're fighting off against somebody with freezing powers. They feel like you're fighting against somebody who have to manage the cube allocation and which power. It's all abstracted. I like the powers you can get. I like the cards and the equipment you can get. That's more fun. But everything you do in the game is very abstracted to a puzzle of, well, I have to control you here, and you have to do that here, and balance this here, and take out the steel heart, and ta-da, we win. I make that sound so unfun, but it's really a lot of fun. We really enjoy it. It's got Yahtzee-style dice rolling as you play your action dice. All those gear you can get is a lot of fun as you level up. You're taking down the big bad. You're doing it together. Lots of fun. Both good. It's good 2-player. It's good 3-4 players. I haven't played it with 5 and 6. I don't think I played it with 5 and 6. I have to check my app, but I don't believe I played it 5 and 6. But I imagine that the more players you add, it would start to bog down the game a little bit, because you're just adding more downtime to the game and less time where you're doing stuff. Still cooperative, so you could be trying to plan together, but the more you plan together, the more you run into the alpha player problem as well. So it's always a balance there. But overall, really like The Reckoners. I'm looking forward to the expansion. I hope it fixes that variability aspect. Don't know. Time will tell. We shall see. And lastly, number 27. And this is where I'll take a break for some well-earned coffee. Don't know why I decided to take a break at the end of the video. At this point, I could have just finished the whole thing. Super Fantasy Brawl. This is a solid one. Oh my gosh, it's a solid one. So, Super Fantasy Brawl by Mythic Games. Loving this game, loving it quite a bit. I will say, Bloodstone, which is coming to Kickstarter shortly, very much a contender here. Very much a contender. I intend to do a play this, not that, of Super Fantasy Brawl versus Bloodstone once Bloodstone lands in terms of the final game. I will have a review of Bloodstone coming, but a play this versus that will be, play this, not that will come up later down the road. Overall, Bloodstone's awesome. But Super Fantasy Brawl is awesomer, at least at 2 players, at least in my experience. Super Fantasy Brawl is going to be a 2-player, head-to-head arena experience where you're basically trying to achieve 5 points before the other player. You can achieve points by destroying other players, but that's not where you get most of your points from, which is why I love it. You get most of your points from the objective, so the kind of hitting each other and trying to destroy each other is kind of a backdrop for the fact that you just have to take out that enemy champion so that you can be in control of those towers, scoring 2 points, plus you get the point for killing the champion, and now you're better set up to walk into his area, and boom, 2 points, 5 points, you win. You'll knock out this game, you'll knock out games of Super Fantasy Brawl in roughly 45 minutes to an hour, maybe an hour if you're including the drafting phase of getting your heroes, picking which heroes you want to work, setting up, doing all that. But I mean, you can knock out a game in an hour and 2 games in an hour and a half, hour 45, pretty easily. I like Super Fantasy Brawl a lot. The playing the cards to get your different abilities, each character feels vastly different, and the characters do feel different. And the miniatures are off the wall. This is definitely one of my highlights of 2020. In fact, there probably are a few games from this list that are my highlights of 2020, but we shall see when I actually do my top 10 games of 2020. Spoiler, some of these will be here, although that list, to be clear, are not games that are... This list is games I played in 2020 and chose to keep, whether or not they are from 2020, versus the other list will be games that are from 2020. And that is everything. 37 minutes, not too bad, or somewhere in that range, but overall, this is my list of games that I've added to my collection, 27 games, with the exception of Clank Legacy, which is inherently out. That leaves 26 to see which ones of these show up in 3 to 6 months, or whichever I do the video, which of these have still made it, because games leave the collection all the time, some faster than others. It just depends on how often, what else I'm adding, and all that stuff. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Thanks for being here, and as always, have a good one.